first of the Battle Buddy Wingman questions. I've heard if a soldier or airman needs mental health, they should not be afraid or threaten to ask for help. Please assure us that this statement is true and accurate.
And as I said earlier, I will do everything in my power to ensure that nothing happens in terms of retribution to a soldier or airman that has a mental health problem, issue, PTSD, whatever else is troubling them. I'll do everything I can to ensure that there's no retribution at any level. And if that is happening, to be honest with you, I really would like to know, because I would ensure that appropriate action is taken against that, we'll say against that commander, that NCO, or whomever who has literally taken a negative action as a result of somebody asking for help, because that's not the way we treat people. And it's, the sad part is it's a mindset that's been in place for decades. And I'd like to think we can change it overnight. The best we can do is, I will continue to talk to it. I know the other senior leaders, both enlisted and officers, believe in this as well. They will talk to it. So I don't know what more I can do but to reinforce that, at the highest levels of the North Dakota National Guard, we're going to do everything we can to take care of that young soldier, young airman. And if they ask for help, as I said earlier, it's a sign of courage, not a weakness.
General, like you just stated in your last answer, we know that taking care of your people is a priority for you. Can you give us specific examples of what that means to you and how we should balance that with the priority of mission accomplishment?
Well, first off, as far as the latter part of the question, in my mind, I truly believe if we take care of our people, they will succeed in whatever mission we assign to them. To me, it's the people of this organization are really the most valuable resource we have, and we have to take care of our people in order for them to succeed. And that means a lot of different things. It can mean some of the things we just talked about and what we do in state active duty status. It can mean providing opportunities for access to, and this is true for families as well, to our chaplains, to our family support groups, our mental health personnel, our social workers. We sought those positions to to provide a resource to our people, and in my mind, that's part of taking care of our people, taking care of their families. We talk about equipment, fighting for the newest and the best equipment, and the training on that equipment is taking care of people, because our soldiers, our airmen need access to the most current generation of equipment and the most relevant missions that are out there. We talk about some of the things we do at the unit level. This actually goes back a couple of years, but in my mind it was very significant at the time in terms of allowing or paying some of the expenses for hotel rooms for our people that came in from out of town. Providing opportunities like this for professional development, in my mind, it's an instance of taking care of people, ensuring that our folks are able to grow professionally as well as personally. So those are some of the things that quickly come to mind, and I think if I had the time, I could develop a very lengthy list of little things even that we've done that, in my mind, truly mean taking care of people. Now, the one thing and I mentioned this earlier, getting to know your people is a great example of taking care of your people. You'll find a brief statement in the command philosophy about, as leaders, we need to know, who the person really is next to us, or that's serving with us in the platoon, the unit, the squadron, or whatever, and what's going on in their life, both militarily as well as civilian, on the civilian side. Knowing what's going on and being able to help them address them is taking care of our people as well.
General, there have been rumblings of a mass layoff of the National Guard staff. Perhaps it is rumored due to the federal budget not being approved yet?
Well, yeah, that's a very real issue, and it's a sad situation in my personal opinion. We're operating under what's called a continuing resolution. Continuing resolution means that we don't have a budget approved by Congress, and yesterday was, today's the 4th. Was a deadline up until about 3 or 4 days ago, and they extended the continuing resolution. If they don't provide a budget, at some point there is the potential for government to shut down. Now, you know, I guess you'd call that a mass layoff, but, you know, government would literally come to a halt if there's no money to provide for the resources, for the, you know, whether it's the salary and allowance, or pay and allowances, or the fuel for vehicles or whatever. You know, if we don't have an appropriation, things come to a screeching halt. And there's been some discussion at it. We've talked at it, about it at the Joint Force Headquarters, and I think next Tuesday or Wednesday we're doing a VTC with the field just to talk through what might happen in the event of government shutdown. And at that point, I hope we're able to answer everyone's questions as well. But it's a real threat. That's an immediate threat. As we look to the long term, and as I said earlier, I don't know what the budgets are going to look like in the 13, 14, 15 time frame, but we know that we're going to have to be more efficient. So that may very well mean that we're going to end up losing some positions. I'm going to do everything I can to protect the positions, because on both the Army and the Air side, our full-time force really is what's necessary for us to succeed as a total force when we talk about all of our drilling status guard members as well as our full-time force. But government shutdown because of lack of funding is a possibility. We don't have the answers as to what might happen. The continuing resolution that was passed the other day goes through the 18th. So on the 18th of March, it's another deadline, and Congress has to do something at some point because right now we're running out of money.
General, as the Army transitions more and more to online NCOES and OES courses, what is the policy for compensation for the time taken to complete those courses?
What the Army did a year or so ago, maybe even 2 years ago, they put in a policy that allows for compensation for soldiers to take to perform distance learning courses. They put in an authorization, but they did not provide any funding. So there's no pool of funds out there that allow us to specifically address distance learning, which is a requirement in many instances for professional development. But what commanders can do is commanders can recognize time off, we'll say time put in for distance learning. They can recognize that by, we still have RMAs in the system. They're limited, but that is a tool that's available to commanders. If there are specific professional development distance learning that has to occur, I would encourage commanders to recognize that. Commanders can also provide credit towards an IDT for a certain amount of distance learning. So the good news is there's an authority to recognize the sacrifices of time that soldiers put in on distance learning. The bad news is there was no funding provided with that authority, and it's something that's still being worked because it's an issue. I know it's an issue at the, it's called the ARFPEC, the Army Reserve Forces Policy Committee, that advises the Secretary of the Army. And somewhere along the line, we're going to see more and more of this. I think we all understand that. We're going to see more and more online activity from a training standpoint, because it can be an efficient way of training, but it's not the way to take care of our soldiers if we require them to do that without some recognition and compensation.
Sir, how will the new Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy directly affect the North Dakota National Guard's mission as an organization and as individual members who are homosexual?
The simple answer is it should not affect the mission one iota. As I said earlier, the key here is that we treat everyone with dignity and respect. And when it comes to the change in the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, the change is very simple in that there will be no discharge of individuals because of sexual orientation, and it will not be a consideration whatsoever in terms of recruiting and retention. So, as the new law goes into effect, commanders, soldiers, airmen should continue to do what they do, to continue to take care of their people, treat everyone with dignity and respect, and continue to work towards a successful mission. And I don't see that as any sort of a bump in the road in our ability to succeed in the future.
Sir, the next question from the field was regarding future and current and future missions. what is the outlook in regard to deployments, both Army and Air?
Yeah, I mentioned a minute ago, we got the 3 units that are on alert on the Army side, and I know on the Air side there's some discussion there too. As we look to 2013 and beyond, 2014 and beyond, there's a lot of uncertainty as to what deployments may occur. I do see the ARFAGEN cycle continuing because we are truly an operational force, and we are a critical element of our nation's defense and our nation's military. And as I look to the future in the long term, we may see other opportunities for deployment, and I say that very carefully, because part of the discussion is, family members and employers and soldiers and airmen know that if we're called to defend our nation in a time of war, we will go. But at some point, that war is going to end, or that war is going to be scaled down to something much less. And the question then it becomes, will the reserve component, will the National Guard continue to be called upon in some way? Right now, the active component is saying we need the Guard, because even though at some point we will not be a nation at war, we still have peacekeeping missions elsewhere in the world. And we're going to see a drawdown in the Army here of like 47,000 troops in the next couple of years. We've already seen a drawdown in the Marine Corps. We expect there'll be something similar in the Air Force and Navy too. As the active component does draw down, they become more dependent on the reserve component in the Guard. I mean, we are the best value for America there is, because we can do anything the active component can do. We're trained to the same standards, we're trained to the same level. So as we look beyond war, the question becomes, will there be, number one, will there be a requirement for the reserve component to fill in on some of those non-war fighting missions that the active component does today? And then the second question to that is really, will America buy into that? Because, as I said, people don't understand we have a federal mission in time of war. No one understands we have a state mission in time of disaster. But does the reserve component become a factor when we talk about a nation that's not at war and overseas deployments? There's a lot of debate and discussion on that. There's no clear-cut answer at this point. Active component would say, yes, we need the Guard, we need access to them, and that's an issue. The access is there, but the question is, will America stand for it if it's not a war fight?
Sir, here's a question that's related to the AGA-US meeting you just came back from. Due to the 119th Wing's ongoing shortage of funded manpower authorizations, when do you think National Guard Bureau will be allowed to move manpower resources across state lines? There are states that are overmanned for current and future missions. How, as a state, are we trying to resolve this?
As I mentioned, the good news was on Wednesday, General Wyatt brought this up. He said, we are looking at manpower missions. And North Dakota was brought up as an example because of the capability we have, the mission we're carrying out, quite frankly, at the wing now, with the Predator mission and the capability we have to expand that. And what he is suggesting is that up to 10% of the authorized strength of a given unit could be transferred to a mission across state lines. I mean, that's the first clear indication that someone is thinking seriously about allowing a transfer of manpower to mission requirements. The reaction from the tags, there was a lot of head shaking. Yes, that's appropriate. The president of the AGA-US right now is General Mike Doobie from Vermont. He just sent out an email yesterday. He wants it's kind of a straw poll of the 54 tags to see if we support that. And if the body language was any indication the other day, there's a pretty good chance that the states realize that that's got to be done. I think the caveat to the success in that, though, is his saying up to 10%, because if you don't have something like that, the image in people's minds is that there'll be massive movement of allocations from one state to another. But I think when you begin to look at it in terms of only a certain percentage of a unit, then there's a better feeling and understanding that that is the right thing to do and something that is acceptable politically, and that's really the issue.
Here's a question related to budgets also. Due to budget concerns, how realistic is it that military construction will be available for future mission opportunities? Our facilities continue to age, and without MILCON, we will be able to host these future missions, such as hangar space for large aircraft.
Excellent question, and the sad part about it is that on the Army side, we have identified a $150 million a year shortfall in MILCON, military construction. On the air side, I think the number was, for some reason I'm thinking it's about 40 or 50 million, but regardless, it's something that brings a total of about $200 million a year shortfall for military construction in the reserve component in the National Guard. BRAC really hampered all of us because there were so many military construction requirements for BRAC from 2005 that they literally cut off almost all military construction in the reserve component in the National Guard. As we look to 2013, there's a sliver of hope that they're going to begin to increase that. Congress has taken this action that doesn't allow earmarks, and that becomes a challenge because earmarks were used to get things done on the MILCON side within states. So right now the future is difficult, it's bleak, but one of the priorities of AGA US is to try to build up that MILCON level. We may never get that $200 million a year, but right now, we'd be happy if we had 75 or 80 or $100 million a year. There's a lot of military construction out there. The average age of the armories on the Army side is, I think it's 53 years old. And one example was given the other day where the Armory was finally replaced after it was 72 years old. So it's a problem, and it's going to be a difficult problem in this fiscal situation.
Finally, what future air mission opportunities are you considering? The MQ-1 Predator is an older system. Do you think we should have a part or association with the future KC-45 at Grand Forks when that aircraft is finally fielded, assuming Grand Forks is still open?
Okay, is it a 45 or a 46? All right. Well, the Predator mission looked like it was going to terminate, but they are continuing to build the Predators, the MQ-1s. We have put forward. Well, we've said that we would be interested in an additional orbit for the MQ-1. We've also said that we're ready to convert to the MQ-9. We can do that relatively easily, and that's, I see the MQ-9 being out there for a longer period of time than the MQ-1. We've also indicated through our strategic planning process the opportunity for an association with Grand Forks for the KC-46. General Wyatt and General McKinley, and I think virtually every TAG, strongly and firmly believes that associated units are the way of the future, because there's where you begin to save money using both the active component and the reserve component, the Guard, in a mission on a day-to-day basis. You can maintain a high level of capability. We've also indicated an interest in a DCGS, distributive ground, distributive ground, what is it? Distributive common ground system. What that is it's a, it's that next higher level after remotely piloted aircraft are used to gather information and intelligence and the interpretation of it. And I was in Grand Forks just about a month ago, and I talked to the community. They asked a similar question in terms of what opportunity is there for the Guard in Grand Forks now. And that is an interesting story. Years ago, Grand Forks didn't really see and understand the value of the Guard because they had all their eggs in one basket at the base. Right now, the base is down to the lowest level it's ever been since startup, and it's going to grow slightly this summer with the Global Hawk. But Grand Forks is realizing that the Guard, the Air Guard especially, is a valuable partner in the future as it looks towards the base and the use of the base. So those are just some additional orbits for the MQ-1, MQ-9. We know the C-27 is coming. The possibility of associated unit with the KC-46, the DGCS, that's another opportunity. And I'm open to other suggestions too.
General, the next couple of questions are on deployments and also the African model. First off, I do not see a lot of deployments from the North Dakota National Guard after fiscal year 2012. Curious, if the North Dakota National Guard is not needed for the warfight, will we have more opportunity for training, and will units have more options for annual training?
I think part of the question I already answered, but I think we've got to take care of our people by providing training. That's absolutely essential. We're going to be strained and challenged in our ability to provide training opportunities as that budget is adjusted. But we are always looking for training opportunities on the Army side and the air side too, out of state. I am a firm believer that that if a platoon, a company, a squadron, can go out of state, out of country, and train even for just a couple of weeks, it's almost, it's invaluable training. You train to your mission, but you also become a much more informed soldier and airman from a cultural standpoint and a worldwide perspective, and it helps grow our professionalism and our personal skills. So yes, we will look for opportunities. They may be limited, but our folks are always on the lookout for what else can we do to train our people and do it in a meaningful way so that we can succeed at the mission and everything else that we do.
General, in regards to the Arthur model, we hear a lot regarding the Arthur model and dwell time. However, we have never received concrete guidance for individual soldier airman dwell time. What is the North Dakota National Guard's policy regarding dwell time for individual members? For example, soldier airman volunteers for deployment for a unit that is not his own. When he returns from the mobilization and returns to his old unit assignment, a few months later, his unit gets resourced. Is that soldier airman required to deploy again? And if not, what is the policy for individual soldier airman dwell time between mobilizations?
I'm glad I read that question beforehand. We don't have an official policy on dwell time, but just a little bit of history. Nationwide, if you go back just a year or so, the average dwell time in the National Guard was, on the Army side, was about 2.4 years. That's now increased to about 3, but really I don't think it's gone above 3. In a perfect world, it would be 5 years, and that's the close or the theoretical model of ARPAGEN. We, as a state, do not have an official policy that says that we will guarantee 2 years, 3 years of dwell time. What I have said, though, is that to my senior leaders, we need to recognize dwell time, and we need to accept the fact that we're going to have hardships in certain situations. And if someone has made that transfer, and let's just say they deployed last year and now they transferred to another unit, and we all know that happens constantly, and that unit now it gets called up and it's going to deploy in the next 12 months or so, and our dwell time is only 2 years. I encourage that commander to take a serious look at that hardship and recognize it. Now, if it is 2.5 to 3 years, that's not out of the ordinary. It's asking a lot, but I would not guarantee that if you had a dwell time of 2.5 to 3 years that you won't be called upon again just because now that you're in a different unit. So there's no official policy. We need to recognize hardship. We'll continue to do so, but if it's in that 2.5 to 3 years, there's a pretty good chance that soldier would go to the new unit.
General, the last couple of questions that we have are miscellaneous questions. The first one will be on IT. With traditional soldiers and airmen having limited access from their homes, what is the North Dakota National Guard IT department doing to close this gap, as PAC readers also have limitations when used at home?
As I said earlier, I've been told we have CAC card readers in every unit, and soldiers need to ask for them. We will continue to work towards enhanced connection and connectivity and ability to access the MILNet. I will tell you, the cyber threat out there is real, and the military is doing everything it can to protect their systems, and that's why they don't allow open access. And there's a certain level of access that can be provided through a CAC card reader and through CAC card use, but I don't ever see the day when everything is open out to all citizens and airmen. Okay, so you have one last burning. You said a minute ago, last question.
This is my last question for you, sir.
Oh, this is a personal question?
No,
Okay.
from the website.
All right, well, I know I'm running overtime, plus I got a hearing at the Capitol in about 20 minutes.
This question deals with benefits to airmen and soldiers who serve. There's a big difference between Army and Air Guard school benefits. Army counterparts are able to file and get school paid for up front, while the Air needs to submit grades and verification after the fact. Is there a way we can file and have courses covered up front, rather than having to wait until the end?
The simple answer is no. Our goal is 100% tuition waiver for all our soldiers and airmen, and we will use the federal dollar first. Right now, as we speak, the Army has money available, and hopefully will continue to have money available for tuition waiver, and they provide it up front. The Air Force, the Air Guard does not, and at least I don't, I've been told they don't have any, so that's where we use our state money. By law, we cannot provide tuition waiver, and this is true in other services too, until the other half of the contract is completed, and that means until the school term is completed, grades are turned in. The number one goal is 100% tuition waiver. We will use whatever federal resources are available. Unfortunately, even on the federal side, the rules can be different between the Army and Air. But then when we throw the state money in the mix, it becomes even another issue for us. Okay. All right, I do apologize. I've run over time, and I was hoping to have a little bit of time for questions from the field. Is there any real burning question out there? I'm going to be around here today, tomorrow, Sunday, and by all means, don't be afraid to grab me and ask me any questions you might have. As I said, we're going to post these questions so that everyone can see what was discussed here today, see what the answers that were given were, and probably within an hour, this session will be on the website. Hopefully next time we'll be able to broadcast live and give anybody and everybody an opportunity to be a part of this in some way. But in closing, I thank you for your tremendous service, for your tremendous dedication and loyalty to the North Dakota National Guard. You are all true professionals, outstanding soldiers and airmen, and it makes me proud to serve with you. And as I said earlier, I've got the greatest job in the world because I come to work every day, and I've got 4,500 outstanding young men and women in uniform doing what they truly believe in, and that's protecting this great nation and state. So thank you. Have a good day.